Hello, everyone, and welcome to the first edition of Poetry Surprises from France. Now, today's issue was meant to be a celebration of sunshine, blue skies, and the southern warmth of Europe. But unfortunately, I received the very sad news last night that John Manson, poet from nearby Kirkpatrick, Durham, where I live in Scotland, died recently. And I wanted to immediately do a tribute to John and put up the film I made about him in 2001. Now, over the course of the last 27 years, I've published a lot of John's work. I published his pamphlet, Malevich in Edinburgh, and I published his translations from Glasgow to Manila. And I also published a lot of his translations of the works of Victor Serge. And many, many other poems through the life cycle of Markings magazine, of which I was editor. So I don't really want to dwell at this stage on any more detail. I think the film you're about to see is in some ways biographical of John and self-explanatory. He did have a roaring fire burning whilst I was in there recording it. So there are the odd crackle and there are differences in volume of voice due to these various recording difficulties. But that was John. But I think you can always rewind a bit and listen to a section again if you need to kind of cement the words here. It was a great privilege knowing John, and we had a good, healthy friendship, and I remember him very, very fondly. He was always challenging and wry, amusing, impish. I'm going to do more films about John Manson in Poetry Surprises. But now, just enjoy this 10-minute piece that I created in 2001, which gives you an impression of the guy. Thank you very much.
I'm going to lynch the theory of the sordid poet. The sordid poet, the poet whose poetry has the fusum trademark of life. Just say exactly what you want to do and I can move anything. I'm going to lynch the theory of the sordid poet. The sordid poet, the poet whose poetry has the fusum trademark of life. Some men gangs out. Some yen leaves the house in a white linen suit, all starched and crest. And at the first corner a lorry swishes past and sprays his jacket or trousers with skints or dirt. That is life. And poetry should be like the skints on the linen. Something to make the braggle reader mad. I ken that poetry is the due too, but those for wee lasses, gold stars, 100% virgins, and sweethearts for he grown old and teen nae harm. And this is the house I was born in. Well, this is my great-grandmother in the shawl. She was evicted in the Hannah clearances from Strathmere. This is on the casement plane, looking out towards John. On a night of wind and rain, The crofter used to hope the lambs would stay where they were. Stay where you are, in the egg, in the seed unmet, until I am sure you will never know the debilitation of sin or the holiness of salvation. From that background, I went to Aberdeen University at the normal age of 18 and studied English. I began taking an interest in Scottish literature and in European literature, which was totally against my official studies. There were 150 in the first ordinary class, and at that stage, as far as I know, I was the only person taking that direction. When I was 20, I went to extramural lectures given by David Murison, who was editing the Scottish National Dictionary, which he did for 30 years. And that was the first time I'd heard about our independent Scottish literary tradition. I found a great number of stones, and to accommodate the stones, to consume the stones, I just built this following. And in the spring term of '53, they were cancelled for lack of interest. To an unconceived child, my personality was crushed gradually, but surely, and an imitation of life grew out like a derision of everything which was sacred to me. On a night of wind and rain, the crofter used to hope the lambs would stay where they were. Stay where you are, in the egg, in the seed unmet, until I am sure you will never know the debilitation of sin or the holiness of salvation, or stagger without sound in slow motion from the gas chamber of prayer, lethal to life, as a stunned fly drags his legs away to a dark corner no one looks by. Or live in the head, live to work, liking in nothing, owning in the name of loving, an iron implement, shouting psalms. The amel wags at the tail of the plough, the horses poo on the chains, I to the hills will lift mine eyes. What language did I learn on the bass rock of a Caithness croft, among the yithings and the sookings, the subserviences, the shutting up? It was reported he spoke good Calvinese. The mayor's lips in the Gowden sun, the act 1,000 times hated, once admitted, white seed spurting on white frost, the stacks on his tether and his baccies down, the hobbled horse, the coo in the branks, the yow in her hems, the high jumper shackled. I am the seed under the stone, I am the tree that grew out of the wall, the spider that never reached the beam, the stream that sometimes cracks the surface. The grass grows up around the stain, but in the mool, white root, yellow shoot. Christ was lucky after all, some in rowed the stain awa. I'm trying to express a time when I felt extremely repressed, and it was quite difficult to shed that repression. I tell you, graceful and luminous, my child's eyes screen your bareness, and it's the ecstasy of happy hunters to have filled a transparent bag which dilates in an empty vase, like a seed in the shadow of a stone. I see you bare, arabesque twined, inert hand at every round of the clock. Sunbeams target all day long, braided rays, plates of my pleasures. A friend asked me to translate a couple of items from Victor Serge's Carnet. What interested me in the Carnet was a kind of prose poetry, a kind of tension. I go into the room where he is no more. What is left of him, the remains laid out under a sheet. The high forehead is still there, hardness of the skull. The eyes are closed and the eyelids wrinkled. A strawberry mark encroaches on the neck. The colour has turned green in a few hours. The mouth is gathered, finished, pitiful. Into English, I've translated a good number of poems by Paul Eluard and Louis Aragon. Then into Scots, a selection of Montale and Vallejo. The witchy nights, or the northern lights. The northern lights, or the merry dancers as we called them, were very visible in casements. A word like a parapet was in common use. It's simply a parapet. I bide in winter because winters were longer and we were snowbound. Of course we had lighthouses flashing from the Orkney Islands. There were a number of motifs straight away which I thought would go into Scots. Icebergs without parapets, without muldre, where a cloaken of skirble and the salls or new-deed seamen come and len out on the witchy nights or the northern lights. Icebergs, icebergs, high kirks, without religion, or the I bide in winter, folded in the ice cap o' planet Earth. Who pure are your banks, born frae the cold? Icebergs, icebergs, back knuckles o' the North Atlantic, big-headed Buddhas, frozen on unsichted seas, flashing licht houses o' death wi' nae way out. The crazed cry o' the sealands lasts for hundreds of years. Icebergs, icebergs, hermits without wands, in lands chockit off and hine awa, and clear o' vermin. Kin till islands, kin till wall springs, as I see ye, how weel I ken ye.